Welcome to Robotics and Automation News webinars, where you can be part of a global event without leaving your home or office. Attend our live webinars and communicate directly with influential professionals in your industry.
Hello, my name is Abdul Montakim. I'm editor of Robotics and Automation News.com. In this interview, I speak to Paul Birkmeyer, co-founder and CTO of a startup company called Dishcraft, which, as you can probably guess and maybe have seen videos of, uses robotics and automation to wash dishes. The company provides the service mainly to the commercial sector, businesses such as restaurants and hotels.
My name is Paul Birkmeyer. I am the CTO and a co-founder of Dishcraft Robotics. And my job is really leading our great team of R&D engineers here to develop the technology that's powering the Dishcraft service, which includes a lot of different robots and AI technology, and making sure that where they're headed is where we want to be going and just really direct their energy.
Right. We'll go to the Dishcraft website in a minute. I'll talk to you first. If you could just provide, I've heard a little bit about Dishcraft, but please provide an overview of Dishcraft and what it does for people who might not know.
Sure. So Dishcraft is our primary service is a dishwashing service. So we call it Dishes as a Service. And what we do is we provide clean dishes to our customers. So a common customer of ours would be a corporate cafeteria. So after, let's say, a lunch service, we would show up with our truck. We would haul away a bunch of dirty dishes in our truck and at the same time leave a bunch of clean dishes for the next lunch service or meal service that they have. We take those back to a warehouse where we have a team of people and robots that work together to very efficiently and with really high quality wash all of those dishes again. And so we're really enabling reusable dishes with really high levels of efficiency and quality to a pretty broad market.
Yeah, obviously the part where you say robots is the most interesting to our audience, and it's
Right.
quite, it's a very new idea, new concept. Obviously, dishwashers as appliances have been around a long time, but why did you choose robots to? Maybe we'll find a video to illustrate how they work in a
Sure.
minute. But why did you choose to do something which I imagine is quite challenging, getting robots to, or automated machines to wash dishes, rather than buy a whole load of dishwashers, for example?
Yeah, that's a fair question. I mean, as you can imagine, this is not what I set out to do in school, was to make dishwashing robots. But really, it was the market really was pulling. That's the first answer, is that there's a really strong market pull. When we started, and this is still very true now, this has been a market that has been very understaffed and hard to staff. And the turnover is very high. There's a lot of workers' comp issues. And so this has been, when you really get past the really appealing side of restaurants and food service, which is the cooking and the serving side, there's been this problem lurking in the back of dishwashing. And so that's when we just started to look at it as a problem. And turns out the process is relatively consistent across industries and has been relatively stable for, decades, which is to say it hasn't innovated in decades. And it is tricky, right? It's very dirty, it's very wet, but you can design to solve those things. And we found a market where you can apply just enough constraint to the problem where it actually becomes tractable, and you can actually make systems that work and work reliably and work even more efficiently than traditional processes. So really the first 6 months of Dishcraft, we were looking at what is the right problem to solve in this space. We had a strong hypothesis it was dishwashing, but we took those first few months of existence to really confirm that hypothesis. And it was not so much like we had this idea to make a robot, but we found the problem and realized that it needed to be solved, and thought it actually would be solved well through robotics.
Right, okay. We'll go onto the website in a minute, as I say, and maybe look for visual things. From memory, I think I've seen it, but the robot and the system, I mean. But this is a system that's located away from the restaurant or the customer that you might have. Are there any systems that you can maybe install within a restaurant that you have as clients?
Yeah. Let's see. So I realized I didn't answer the second half of your question from before, which is why not use residential machines and things like that. And when Dishcraft first started, we were looking at making robots that would actually go onto a customer location. And most customer locations, this is still true today for us in our current model, they're designed for throughput. A residential machine is not meant for throughput. They've become quite energy efficient and water efficient, but they do that at the expense of time. And that does not work in a fast-paced environment like in a restaurant or a typical commercial dish room. And so their process is different. They use basically, they receive the dirty dishes. There's a person who receives those dishes, and they pre-clean those dishes. They arrange them in a rack. That's a lot like the top rack of your residential machine. And they send them into a machine called a sanitizer that was invented in the 40s and has gotten slightly more efficient since then, but really hasn't fundamentally changed since the 40s. And that machine kills the bacteria on whatever surface has been exposed by the staff upstream. So if you send in a dish with salad, you'll get E. coli free baked on salad on that plate on the output. A lot of it will get washed away, but not all. And so the person needs to make sure that they're pre-cleaning those dishes. But when we were looking at making a system to go fast enough, to be compact enough, to be safe enough, to be in an environment with untrained people, it was actually a really large problem to tackle. And we found that the robot wouldn't be used very much. It'd be used for a few hours a day because it could process all the dishes it needed to in a few hours a day, and then be idle, which was not a great use of our capital to make a robot that was really capable, but only used for 1/12 of a day. And that's when we were looking at how do we get more out of each robot we produce. And that's when we switched to this model where we keep all the robots centrally. We run them for multiple shifts a day, and we get much higher revenue per robot. And that makes it actually quite appealing for us as a business, despite the fact that we're now having to move dishes. It more than pays for itself because we get a lot more uptime and productive time out of each robot.
So logistics becomes important as well. Let's go to the website, and maybe you can guide me around. And I'm curious about this machine now. Oh, okay, this is the home page.
Yeah.
Not sure
if you scroll down a little bit, there's a better video. That one there.
That one, okay. Let's mute it, and you can talk over it, and I'll just play it. So this is the robot.
We actually, this is at least, there are at least 2 robots in this process now. So I'll talk through it live. The service is we deliver these clean dishes, lunch is served onto those dishes, and then they're collected back again. And in a lot of cases, we have equipment that we've provided that makes dropping off those dishes ADA compliant at all times, but also densely organizes those into carts that we then use to transport those wares. So our truck will come and then take away these carts. No one's touching the dirty dishes at this point. They get packed into a truck, and these also then become the input unit into our process. So we will soak those dishes with gray water to loosen up the food. We send them into a scrubbing robot that will uniquely identify the dish, what type it is, because we need to change how we scrub it, how we rack it. Each dish is scrubbed again with gray water because we don't need to use water as the cleaning device. We're scrubbing it. Then they get sanitized. We're creating a reusable takeout container. Then there's another system where we're doing inspection of those dishes. So we take 20 images in that second system, run a big fusion with AI to decide if those dishes are worthy of going to a customer or not. And then they get packaged up again in those same carts to go back out to the customer. So the whole process is touchless now. Our staff is just moving carts around. They're never touching a dirty dish. The whole process of handling those dishes is now automated.
Mm. I have seen the part of the video at least. I'll show you which bit I mean. It's the bit where this device spins around.
That's right.
And cleans the plate. So these bins, if you like, you made those, did you? And these trays, these trolleys, or whatever you call them.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
We did several experiments to see what is the best way to densely collect those dishes and also safely collect those dishes, because they are ceramic, and that's an important part of the experience.
That's the bit I think I saw that impressed me most.
You have to, yeah. So this particular clip was filmed a little while ago. The system's a bit more refined than this now, but it's also enclosed and safety interlocked, so it's a lot harder to get shots of. And then this new inspection robot is actually something we've developed during COVID. Something we had started pre-COVID, but we accelerated during COVID to kind of complete this touchless end-to-end process where none of our staff are touching a dish, which is important for our staff's safety, but also is reassuring to our customer. And then we do this very rigorous 20-point inspection within that system.
Mm. Yeah, it's a fantastic. Obviously, I'm sure everybody watching would like one of those at home. Or if they don't have a dishwasher like myself, I'm thinking about getting a dishwasher finally after so many years. But yeah, it's a very good system by the looks of it. What's the throughput then? Do you have any numbers about how many dishes you're either cleaning now, or what the capacity is, what the capabilities of that particular facility and system?
Yeah, so it's because we are now running the whole warehouse. A lot of the planning we're doing for our hub development, we're building a new hub now. We're expecting about 25,000 dishes per day out of about 5,000 square feet. And so we will pack a few of these scrubbing robots in there and a handful of like 1 or 2 of the inspection robots in there. And that'll get us the numbers that we need. But you can scale that. I mean, the nice thing about this is you can make a hub that's twice as large and process 50,000 in a day.
Yeah, that's very efficient. I don't know, maybe I don't know about these things, but 25,000 dishes, I think you said 5,000 square feet.
That's right.
That's a very small facility, really. I mean,
yeah.
You could maybe run a franchise where you're giving the opportunity for people to set up these facilities near locations where there are lots of restaurants and provide the service to the local restaurants, rather than you do it yourself, go around to different cities and locations and set up the facilities yourself. What is your current business model and plan? Is that what you're going to do? You're going to set up in different parts of the country yourself? or
We've
franchising?
had discussions about franchising. I think franchising requires we just want to be a bit more mature before we would take something like that on. Right now, the systems are working very well, but we are still scaling and want to get a few more of these hubs under our belts and make sure that it is truly reproducible, and before we start to make that investment in a service network that then services franchisees rather than is kind of all within our own operation. So franchising is certainly something we might consider in the future, but right now the model is we own and operate the hubs. Also, we own the dishes, because we are actually manufacturing these dishes to make sure that they will be automated easily and that our AI can handle them well. We're beginning to track them so we can know exactly who gets what, but we actually, like I said, own all the dishes as well. And in a lot of ways for our customers, that's actually really nice because they don't have to track their own inventory. We're doing all of that for them. But it's a monthly subscription where we are typically being paid by the number of meals that we're providing service for.
Actually, the idea of you owning the dishes and providing those dishes, what about the restaurants? I mean, I would imagine a lot of restaurants. I actually didn't think restaurants would want to have somebody else say these are the dishes that you should use for your customers, if you don't mind me saying, because I would have thought that would be a very important part of the aesthetic experience that they're offering to their customers.
Yeah, that's right. That's, I think, an accurate assessment. But most of the customers that we're serving today, and we were very intentional about going after these customers first, are less preoccupied with the dish itself, and are more they're more okay with these kind of just standard nondescript dishes, and we tried to make them kind of generic and sort of widely appealing. But we're really looking initially at customers that do a lot of volume, and like corporate cafeterias, hotels, universities, assisted living, things like that, where food is not necessarily the primary product. It is an important part of what they do or a service they provide to their staff, but it's not something that they're differentiating on, or at least the dishes aren't something they're differentiating on. So when you look at the market size, that is definitely the place to start. Restaurants are very distributed, and there are lots of small accounts, and so that will be kind of the tail. And it also makes it easier for robotic development, because making a system that works really well and really reliably for a known set of inputs, these dishes, is certainly a lot easier than something that works for anyone's dish. And that also, I think, is doubly true when you add in the dirt detection AI that we're talking about. It's just much easier if you know what a clean dish ought to look like, rather than trying to anticipate what their dish looked like before you received it and then trying to get it back to that state.
Yeah, well, it's potentially well, I imagine that it's potentially a huge market, whichever way you look at it, whether you're talking about the big corporate and hotel sort of clients, or whether the tail part, which you also mentioned. Yeah, it's I think it's a particularly big market now because of, as you mentioned, highlighted or touched on, because of the pandemic. And going back to the pandemic, let's talk about the labor situation. Obviously, all sorts of industries are experiencing labor shortages. And this is probably one of them. And the other issue, um, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, first 6 months, maybe a year of lockdowns and whatever, there was a lot of businesses that were going under. You know, there was a completely different reason. It's not like they couldn't find people to, you know, wash their dishes or staff their restaurants. It was just the pandemic and they had to shut up shop. I mean, now that they're gonna, you know, come back, if you like, or reopening, everybody's coming back to work slowly and whatever. What do you see the changes happening in this market? I mean, you mentioned that the person who pre-cleans the dishes is kind of like the person who's not being replaced, but their job is somewhat being done by this robot. What are the consequences of this kind of automated system on an industry like that, given the labor shortages, as well as you know, maybe the tougher economic conditions?
Yeah, I briefly mentioned this before, but when we started, it was the reason why there was this pull from the market is because this particular role has been perennially understaffed and really difficult to keep staffed. And when they do find people, the turnover is on average just maybe a couple months. So they're going through staff very quickly because, well, for a lot of reasons, but it is a very difficult job and there are a lot of workplace injuries. So when we started the company, it wasn't so much that we were displacing people as that we were trying to fill holes. And in doing so, we were trying to be very intentional about when we make these robots, let's make sure that that robot works alongside the people who are still there, and makes their job easier and safer, and at the same time results in better quality and better sort of utility, water, energy efficiency. And I would actually say that that's very much still the case now. There's still, I think, the industry is having a very difficult time finding people to do this job in particular, kind of the washing and cleaning of the dishes. So there are a lot of people who enjoy this job, and our goal is not to take that away, but maybe make the job better and work alongside those people who they are able to staff, but allow them to get back up to actual peak operational efficiency, where those people are not overworked, they're not having as many injuries, there's not as many cuts and slips and things. And so that's for people who are some of our customers who are already doing dishwashing. But then there's this whole segment, and potentially even larger segment that we're finding, where we're not replacing dishwashing, we're replacing disposables and compostables. So we have a lot of our customers who are today just using dishes that they throw away after a single use. And we're actually making it possible for those customers to use reusable dishes for the first time. They don't need to build a dish room. They don't need to hire for that. They can just start using our service and go very quickly from throwing away literally tons of trash, landfill, single-use plastics, styrofoam into the landfill, to reusing dishes hundreds of times, but without any of the infrastructure costs. And that's a very big portion of what we're doing. So the story is actually very different for a lot of our customers.
That sounds interesting. That sounds very interesting. The styrofoam, I don't know if it's, is that a type of plastic, styrofoam, or?
It's like those expanded polystyrene,
yeah,
and those kinds of plates. Maybe they're not popular there, but they're definitely used here in the States.
No, I've seen them around. I don't know which restaurants and things you use them, but there'll be plenty of places where they are used, and maybe you get a lot of them in temporary sort of events. You know, the events, either music events or
That's
some
true.
sort of other events where you have lots and lots of people passing through,
Yeah.
and they just they haven't got the means to collect the dishes and deal with all that. So yeah, I can see that being part of it, and obviously it has a very good environmental dimension. I actually
That's right.
noticed on your website about the waste reduction. What about these plates that you design yourself then? What's different about them? What is it that you know? In what way did you customize them to make them more amenable to the AI that you've got? Are they harder, or are they? I don't know. Is the surface coated with something different, or what?
There are many coatings I wish existed that we could use, but no, they're almost they're just slightly modified for the ceramic, slightly modified kind of heavy commercial use grade ceramics. But if you go to the maybe just even the front page or dishes as a service tab up there at the top. At some point, if you go down to the video, you'll be able to see the back side of the dish. You scrolled past it already. There, that little square up a little bit. That video that we had watched previously. Mm-hmm. If you ever see the back of a dish, you'll see a silver circle. And it's actually a small piece of stainless 400 series. And we've put that into the dishware to actually allow us to use magnetic manipulation.
Oh.
And we had enough problems to solve that we didn't want to make robotic manipulation and kind of like dexterous manipulation one of those problems. And now, because we can use magnets, we can do a lot of different things. We can invert dishes for cleaning, so the food also kind of falls away. But also all the end effectors are now very cleanable with no surfaces, no joints, things like that, where it's very difficult to clean. So our machine, this scrubbing machine, has been NSF field certified, which basically indicates that it's very cleanable and won't harbor mold and bacteria. And one of the ways we got to that point was through using magnetic end effectors. There are a few other little things that mechanical features that will key into different elements of our system to make sure that they're locked in place.
So are these sorry to interrupt, are these magnetic, I can just see them, but without this in the way, hold on, let me see if I can rewind and get a better angle.
So if you go to...
Is that the steel thing that you're talking about?
Yeah, that's the steel. That's the steel. Yeah. It's just a small piece of steel. They're not actual magnets, so your silverware won't stick to your plate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is that I haven't ever seen something like that, to be honest. Is that an innovation that only you have or use? I haven't seen a steel underneath. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's something we've had to work with. We work with a dish manufacturer, ceramics manufacturer, who's well known to make that modification for us. And if you look somewhere in this video, I think just prior to this are the containers that we're about to launch in November. And we've been working with a separate plastics manufacturer, I believe right here. And as you saw that lid going on, you could see the steel.
Yeah, I see it. There it is,
Yeah. And so this is the first container we're doing. And that makes it possible to do kind of more prepackaged meals, meal delivery, things like that. We're going to be doing a few more shapes very shortly. And so that steel makes things a lot easier from the magnetic manipulation. We can go faster, we have reliable grasping. And it's on the bottom. And as we talked about before with doing dishes for restaurants, our target markets are not bothered by this at all. They don't even really notice it typically.
It's an interesting feature. I just wonder how many people have ever done anything other than containers away, throw straight in the bin, returning containers. I don't know how widespread a practice that is, but it'd be interesting to know what. I mean, I find it interesting that you've innovated by using that steel, probably quite thin, to try and reduce the amount of weight on there for several reasons. But yeah, it solves a problem. I think they used to call it lateral thinking in the old days. It solves a problem by going outside of the normal way of making these things.
Yep.
So yeah, it's very interesting indeed. So what about the business in terms of numbers and revenue and turnover, and what kind of numbers do you have, if you can share them, or what projections can you share about your business going forward?
Well, we're not sharing a lot on revenue right now. We're doing quite well pre-COVID. COVID obviously impacted the market pretty significantly. We had a lot of customers pause our service, but since then we've had a lot of customers turn back on again, and we're ramping our customers in the Bay Area. But now we're also looking to expand we have a handful of really like a dense urban metropolitan areas are kind of our target, where you can get the density to support this dishes as a service model, because you do want to have enough customers kind of centrally located around a hub. So we're at that point where we're building additional hubs here in the Bay Area, but we're also starting to look for next year to start expanding geographically within the States.
What's the, I don't know, you don't have to share numbers, but what's the return on investment on a hub like that? I mean, how much does it cost to build that hub? I know when you first start, you do so much research and development that it costs a lot of money to do anything really. But at some point you will have optimized your processes and innovated up to a point that you don't really need to make significant innovations. You've got a system going. So the cost of setting up a hub or a facility becomes fairly consistent. So what would be the return on investment if it was a franchise, or for yourself? You know, if you're spending, I don't know, however much, how long does it take to get your money back?
Yeah, that's we get similar questions from investors, and we do kind of think about the hub as our kind of unit of economics, and looking at the economics around that unit and how we can scale that is exactly how they think. So with a hub, you can get into all the nuance, right? But the simplest math would be if you turn on a hub and have it mostly fully booked, you can pay off that hub in under 6 months. So it's a pretty quick return. Our margins end up being pretty good for, especially for a hardware company. We're targeting kind of by the end of next year above 50%, but then we have direct line of sight to 70-80% margin for a service like this. So the payback period is actually quite good. It does take capital up front to set it up, especially because we also provide the dishes. So part of that capital expense for setting up a hub is buying those dishes, which is easy to forget about, but ends up being a non-trivial part of that. And then there's all the other standard dishwashing equipment, water heaters, things like that beyond just the robots too. So it does take some capital to set up, but the payback is actually quite good.
Okay, well, Tell you what, it's a very interesting system and company, and I'm very glad that we have had a chance to talk. I mean, I saw the video a long time ago, and there were, I can't remember what website it was on, LinkedIn or Reddit or something, where people were, you know, raving about the how clever and good this system looks. So it's been a pleasure talking to you. Is it something that that maybe you want to mention that I maybe didn't ask about, that I didn't cover?
We no, I mean, we covered a lot of things. I think one of the things that is a big drive for us that we just briefly touched on is the sustainability wins. Um, we, with our system, because we're able to control so much of the process and we use gray water in a lot of places where a traditional dish room cannot, we end up saving a lot of water. We use about a fourth of the water and a tenth of the energy of a traditional dish room. And then those numbers get even better. So that ends up being maybe even a couple gallons per meal of water that we're saving. But then that gets even better when you look at replacing disposables, plastics, like single-use plastics, or compostables. And that's a big part of our market too. And so a lot of our customers are very motivated by that. And that's an area where that we're already much, much better than what's available in the market now. And we continue to optimize that because that's something we are very passionate about and also comes out of our bottom line. So it's kind of a really fortuitous situation for us as humans where we are motivated to save the planet because it's good. It's a good thing to do, but also it's good business for us. We are quite proud of what we're doing on the sustainability side, what we're able to do.
Yeah, there's a big concern. A lot of people, I think everybody has realized now that the plastic phenomenon or the plastic age. I remember a song called The Plastic Age, actually, and plastic was very much raved about in the 60s when it was first sort of widely used in all sorts of products. And now that people can see that it's basically everywhere on the planet in microplastics are basically they're filling the ocean and all sorts of other, they're coming down in with the snow and things like that. It's gone mad. So yeah, everybody, I can imagine that part. There are people who would be quite eager or keen to replace any single-use plastic that they use. Yeah. With something like this. So I'm not surprised in a way that you're doing well. And so, and in other, I'm sure you'll do well in lots of other sectors, but that sounds very interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. Well, it's been a great pleasure to talk to you. I wish you all the best with the business, and we'll stay in touch and keep ourselves informed of how you go. By the way, sorry, that's why I was hesitating. I forgot to ask you, what's grey water then?
It is non-potable water, and for us, it's water that we've used to that has food in it, basically, for us in our application. So in that system, like the scrubbing robot, we use water we scrub the dish, we use water to basically carry that food away, and then we filter that and reuse it again. But obviously it's not clean at that point. It has oils and things in it. But we're not using the water for cleaning, we're using it for basically carrying away the food debris and lubricating the scrubber. So it's not potable. In a traditional dish room, that station that we would be up-leveling with this robot is using a sprayer that's using heated, potable water, mostly because anyone could walk up with a cup and fill it and drink from it. But that's not possible with all the interlocks we have in the system. So we're allowed to reuse that water. And obviously it starts fresh, but then once you use it once, becomes undrinkable, becomes gray water. And then we can keep reusing that water over and over again.
Right. Obviously, that saves a lot of water. And
Yes.
my last quick question is, sorry to be nerdy, but do you know what that company, the robot, what company's robot that is, the robotic arm? I know the rest of the system you would have developed
Yeah.
yourself. Machine
Yeah.
itself you would have built, but the component, I don't think I saw it in this video, but yeah, you know
In
the
our
one I mean.
inspection robot, the one that's,
Actually, I saw it in one of the videos. It was
yeah.
moving, maybe in this video, actually, it was moving
Yes,
dishes
that's right.
from one place to the other. It was picking and
That's right.
placing.
So that's a Denso arm.
Sensor,
So
yeah.
they're a Japanese manufacturer. They make really great arms, and those are IP rated, which is really nice for us.
And the inspection robot, is that a different one?
It is, yeah. So the scrubbing robot is a separate system, and the scrubbing robot we had brought out pre-COVID and was kind of leading the charge, and by far doing the hardest job to do. And by solving that, we made everything else a lot easier. But then during COVID, we brought online this inspection system, which allows the full touchless end-to-end, which is a nice sanitary story. But also that inspection station is also very tedious, very hard to keep people motivated to do for hours and hours and hours. And so that system is separate. It's now downstream of the scrubbing robot and is basically picking them up after they've been sanitized, inspecting the front and the back, and then rejecting them based on, or passing them based on, are they clean? Do they have any chips or cracks or like water spots or things like that? And we're able to filter out all of those and make sure that customers just get the best dishes. And then we can filter out the rejected dishes for various reasons to be rewashed or recycled or something.
Yeah, I read about inspection systems using robotic arms, and it seemed like a great idea because that is a very tedious job. But yeah, that was the other observation I was going to make. It's obvious, I don't need to say it, but basically your business replaces or what are classic sort of job things, dirty, dangerous, and dull jobs. So yeah, that's classic in the sense that nobody wants to do dishes, but yeah, this is a system for everyone. All right, well,
and if you'll notice the logo there, the three Ds.
Yeah, okay. All right. So you've made it into a central principle of your company, the dirty, dangerous, and dull sort of solution to those things. All right. Well, Paul, it's been great talking to you. It's all the best with, I'm sure I'll hear that you've opened up in different shops and raising more money, different cities, and raising more money as well. Actually, how much have you raised to date?
To date, we've raised 45 million.
Yeah, are you going to have any more investment rounds after this?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the capital we'll be raising will be to help with the expansion at this point.
Yeah, 45 million is not bad to begin with, though, or for now.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Well, okay. Well, take care of yourself and speak to you soon.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you for talking to us.
Send us an email at sales@roboticsandautomationnews.com to register for one of our many upcoming webinars. And if you'd like us to host your webinar, we have a range of options, including long-term lead generation packages and marketing campaigns. We look forward to hearing from you soon.